and welcome to the SBK Betting Podcast, as our main focus is on Glorious Goodwood this week, the Qatar Goodwood Festival. We are at this point of recording halfway through the week, but we still got some good action to focus on towards the latter, the likes of the Stewards Cup to be the main focus, and a few others as well. But my name's Luke Elder, Ross Millar with me as well. Ross, how are you doing? How are you enjoying Goodwood, more importantly?
Really enjoying it, Luke. Watched a bit of the ITV coverage yesterday, actually, and it's moved up the bucket list a couple of places actually to get to Goodwood. It's a place I've not been. It appeals to my laid back nature, and not having to wear a top hat certainly appeals.
You've never been to Goodwood full stop, or to Glorious Goodwood?
Never been to Goodwood full stop.
I'll say two things. Glorious place, wonderful when the sun's out.
So that's 6 years' time.
Yeah. Good luck trying to work that one out. But it's been nice this week. We had two track records broken, or the same track record broken in the same day, or one Wednesday. So the track's riding pretty fast, and the rain's not really meant to come this week.
No, I think, and you know, I was a little bit put out that they put what I thought was a bit too much water down for the first day, but we got to see Trushan, so let's not grumble too much. But I do like flat racing on good to firm ground if that's what Mother Nature is intending. And I think for the race we're going to look at, the Stewards Cup, the faster the better, really.
Mm-hmm. The draw isn't yet out for the Stewards Cup, but it's the race that we're going to focus on all the same. Obviously, it makes the race a little bit harder for you and I, Ross, but I think we both got the same sort of view about where you at least want to be on the track.
Yeah, I think we want to be stand side, don't we, really? I think the last place you want to be in the middle, but for me, stand side. I just think that horses do tend to roll off the far side rail, and you can end up being on the far side rail, but rolling into the middle of the track, which is not ideal. So yeah, I've looked at it very much with a view that I'm hoping the couple of selections will get a nice draw up the stand side rail.
Who are you hoping is drawn in stalls 26 and up?
Well, so sort of looking at it, I thought it had an interesting makeup. It's fairly compressed at the weights. I think Great Ambassador needs a mention because he was a very good third last year, running on the wrong side of the track. He's effectively £8 higher if you factor in that Safi Osborne is full value for £3, which I happen to think she is. I think she's very good. £8 is probably a bit of an ask, but he probably deserves to get a nice draw and run a big race after such a monstrous effort this time last year. Last year's winner, Comanche Falls, is in there. I was quite surprised to see he's only £2 higher. I don't think that's necessarily going to stop him. So I've certainly got a mark against him that if he gets a favourable draw, I'd like to have a few pound running on him. I thought Regional was interesting with Ryan Moore booked. I thought that was an eye-catching booking for the Bethels, but he's often slowly away. And as we mentioned last week, Goodwood is chocked full of hard luck stories. He looks ripe for one to me. So although he's got ability and he's interesting, I've put a line through him just because of his run style. That said, the one I'm coming down on is Method. Now, whether there's method to the madness here, I'm not sure. I think he's a really talented horse. Some of his 2-year-old form was top notch. Clearly lost his way a little bit. He's clearly not that easy to train. And he's got a big enough weight, but because it's fairly compressed, he's not having to give absolute chunks away, which sort of encouraged me in a little bit. And I just think he's got the ability to win a race of this nature. It was a really good run in the Coral Charge, fast finishing third behind Rasal over 5 furlongs. I just wonder whether this quick 6 furlongs might just suit him well. He will need a bit of luck in running. He bombed out at Newbury last time. It was inexplicably bad. The sprinters can be a bit like that, can't they? They need things to go their way. He could well finish last, but I think he's got a huge amount of ability. I think he's probably the most talented horse in this race. And so therefore, he goes on my list along with Comanche Falls.
Yeah, I think sprinters can do that at Newbury as well. Newbury's been a weird flat track for the last 3 or 4 years, but Comanche Falls and Method, the two for Ross. I've just seen the sort of anti-post markets, and when the dealing's done was one of mine. He's towards ahead of the market, but I'm not against that at all. Much like Ross, I would like them drawn high, more towards the stand side. Obviously, last time around ran well up until a point, then got sandwiched, got mullered, and the run came to an end. Still managed to rally for seventh, though. I thought that was a really good effort over at Ascot. I think a quick six will really suit when the dealing is done. And as we said earlier on, 2 track records for the juveniles, admittedly, went earlier on in the week. That's a big positive. That the faster the ground, the better for when the deal is done. I'd have preferred it if they put no water down whatsoever, but that's fairly unrealistic. And when the dealing's done, I think he's going to be a big player in this. And I'll take one of the bigger price as well for Mick Appleby, who his runners I always tend to watch out for, generally in the consolation race of this, but Anaf just misses out from getting in the consolation, is the second lowest, I think, to get in, or one of the last ones to get into the field, if you will. Is a 3-year-old in this field, but I do think there's more to come from Anaf. Last time around, managed to run at Newcastle, bumped into Sense of Duty, who won the chip chase in very, very nice fashion. I'd imagine that Sense of Duty will be a Group 1 horse by the end of the year, potentially something like Champions Day. And before that at York was on the wrong side, in the wrong part of the race, more towards the rear of the field, and things just didn't go right, but still managed to finish 5th behind Harry 3. We know what he's gone on to do since. He was very good over in France in Group Company not so long ago. So I think Anaf is a horse that at the prices it is worth keeping an eye upon. Jess Stafford was with us. She's off to Goodwood, but she sided with Just Another Bottle, and do you remember who our other one was, Ross?
Tinto, was it?
Tinto, yes. Tinto and Just Another Bottle. So if they win, well done to Jess. But we're each taking 2 in the Stewards Cup. And obviously, we've got quite a bit more racing on in the weekend. So I'm going to pinpoint you down, Ross, to a nap of the weekend.
So a nap, this is a horse I've been waiting for since the middle of last year. I write a piece for Racing TV Juvenile Watch. He was one of the first ones that went to my notebook early last year. A horse called Love de Vega from the Johnston Yard. He's got a pedigree that is chocked full of stamina, and yet he still ran 2 really good races over 5 furlongs very early in the year, behind a horse called Forca Brazil who won the Brocklesby last year. It was 2 nice pieces of form. He then won very easily over 6 furlongs in a fairly moderate race, but he did it very, very nicely. He wasn't hard pressed to it, and then has clearly had a few issues and has been away. He was ended up quite early in the season and never actually got to the track. He was a late non-runner. He steps up to 7 furlongs here at Newmarket. I just feel that's going to suit. I think what he's been doing on ability, certainly not from suitability. All the family is 1.5 mile performers. I think 7 furlongs on the stiff enough track at Newmarket. I'm really excited to see him off bottom weight with Frankie Dettori riding, who goes to Newmarket instead of Goodwood.
Yeah, it's going to be one of the trickier ones, but at least you've been waiting for a little while.
Yeah,
so you won't be let down too much.
it's surely got to be worth the wait.
Yeah, exactly. One that I haven't been waiting quite as long for. I'm going to go to Galway for my nap of the weekend at the 4:15, which is quite boringly for Galway, one of their nursery contests. But I think Thunderbear is a horse of Jack Davison, who is so much better than a mark of 82. Has been quite weirdly campaigned, must be said, and is dual or doubly entered at Galway. So do keep an eye on where Thunderbear actually does go. But ran last time around in Group 3 company. The Curragh. That was in the Anglesey Stakes behind Little Big Bear. Very high company to be keeping. The time before that, ran one of the most extraordinary races you'll see at Bellewstown. Was up to a mile in the maiden contest. Really kicked for home and showed tons of speed early on. Just didn't quite see out the mile, which as a 2-year-old, there's no shame in that whatsoever. Was second at Down Royal over 5 furlongs the time before. I think this trip is absolutely perfect. Obviously, there is a question mark whether Thunderbear actually runs here, because there are other entries, as I say, in the week. But if Thunderbear does run here, I'm struggling to see the Davison runner beaten, if I'm being perfectly honest. That's in the 4:15 at Galway. And of course, SBK, as always, has got place-only odds on all races. Anything that I could steal from you, Ross, at a big price for a place-only shout?
Yeah, again, I've gone to Galway for this. The 2:30, the Borsport hurdle. I really like the Little Big Yank. He doesn't win all that much, but he's got some really good course form around Galway. He's been second a number of times, been third a couple of times, and he was 8th in October last year, where he looked like he was going to go very close, but then absolutely made a Horlicks of the second last and ended up finishing 8th. I think he's been running over 2 mile 2 and a bit. I think this step up to 2 mile 6 is really going to suit. Harry Swan, very talented lad, claimed £7, will lighten the load significantly. He may be good enough to win it, but I'm very confident he can more than easily hit the frame.
I'm going to do a swap with Ross. He's going to Galway. I'm going to go back to Goodwood for the place only one. In the 210 at Goodwood, the mile 6 summer handicap. But Bagdoor is a horse that I've loved this season for the Chris Wall yard. Managed to win at Newmarket a couple of starts ago, beat Sea Appeal that day. He just keeps on finding, and he's a very tough nut to crack. We found that out last time at Ascot. He got the better of Berkshire Breeze and Inverness, who we've seen at Goodwood so far this week. He was probably on the wrong part of the track as well, more towards the far side. The wider you were that day with the cutaway at Ascot, the better it was. But I still think Bagdoor's got a fair bit more to give. He's only £3 higher than for that Ascot success. Yes, I know this is a trickier race, but from a place-only standpoint, I think Bagdoor is going to be very, very interesting for Chris Wall and Neil Callan. Hopefully a good day for Neil Callan as well, as he's on When the Dealing's Done in the Stewards Cup. But Ross, a bit more of a brief SBK Betting Podcast.
Without our esteemed leader.
Yeah, without Jess. I believe one of our other esteemed leaders and colleagues will be back next week in Tom Collins. So if I'm not here, it's been a pleasure being with you guys, and I'm sure I will be at some point again, but I'll return to my usual home of the SBK Saturday night selections. But Ross, working with you has been an absolute pleasure.
And with you, Luke.
We'll be back next week, or at least Jess will definitely be back next week. It will be either myself or Tom Collins, depending on how being a dad is going in the first 3 weeks of his life. But thank you for being with us. Apologies, it's a shorter episode today, but hopefully still a few winners to be found on the SBK Betting Podcast. We'll see you next week. Until then, have a very good weekend. Stay safe. Look after one another. Goodbye.